Alright folks, here we are back at it with our Crosley 124. You'll see that just upon further inspection there's a lot of rust on this chassis. So I put some navel jelly on it and I'm working slowly to get this off, but this chassis has got a lot of rust. And as a matter of fact, this side here was completely rusty. So I ended up stripping it, not stripping it, but putting navel jelly on it. And I put a coat of silver metallic paint on it just to protect it. And that's probably what I'm going to end up doing for the whole chassis. I just want to make sure that this chassis doesn't get too bad because it is rusty all over the place. So that's the issue there. So the plan for today is to take off this tuning capacitor. The tuning capacitor is held on by this this bracket right here. Let's see if I can show you that. And it's held on with these 3 screws. Now I'm surprised that it's not isolated from the chassis, but it's not. So that's going to be the plan. There's 3 wires here. There's one here, if you could see in there. There's one wire here. There's one wire here. There's one wire here that goes underneath the chassis and connects right in here to these coils and these sockets. So I'm going to snip the wire underneath, pull the tuning capacitor up, and then when I put it back in, I just run new wires on and connect it. So that will allow me to get that tuning capacitor cleaned and oiled and lubed and everything I need to do. Aside from that, just from a discovery perspective, I did find that this sardine can right here, let me see if we can zoom in on that a little bit, show you. This sardine can is out of the circuit. So it must have gone bad at some point. And it looks like someone put in this capacitor right here in its place. And it's a crappy job. And this is a 0.1, so I don't know what this can is yet. I have to look at that. So that has to be fixed. I also found this wire right here, just kind of hanging in the breeze. And it looks like this wire goes to this bundle of mess here. So so I got to see what happened underneath there. Aside from that, everything else looks pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of components in this thing, which is making me wonder. I also see there's another sardine can here, and I have to see what's in there. I've also taken a look at the electrolytic, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but it says Aerovox, and it's an 8 microfarad and a 6 microfarad. So it's an 8 and a 6, and that's what was in this box. And it's potted, obviously. So I think what I'm going to do is probably on the 3D printer, I'm going to print a box this size, and I'm going to stuff it with the 2 capacitors just to make it look authentic. And then I'll put these brackets back in place and hold it down, so at least it looks good. And I'll use black plastic so at least it matches. And maybe I'll print a label that says Aerovox. We'll see. So that's what we're going to do with this capacitor. So for the time being, the plan now is to get this tuning capacitor off. So that's what we're going to focus on. So the plan is going to be to snip these wires. They come up right here. Here's one. There's one here and there's one down here. And we're going to lift that thing off. We're going to throw it in the evaporust and lube it and all that stuff. So let me get that out, and I'll be right back. One thing I want to show you about this this dial setup here, which I thought was interesting. So here's the bulb that comes up, and you'll notice there's a little pin here. And this ends up being the dial light indicator. So as you turn this dial, like so, you're supposed to see the shadow of this pin. And I guess when the bulb is lit, you do see that. So that's interesting. It's bent, so I'll have to fix that. But that's attached actually to this tuning capacitor, so we're gonna take that up. Be right back. Okay, we have the tuning cap removed. That wasn't so hard. There's these 2 wires that come out here for the light. I just had to snap one of those off. And you'll see that there is a lot of rust under here, so I'm glad I'm doing this. I'm going to clean all this up. And I'm probably going to end up painting the entire top of this with that metallic paint, just to protect it after I put a coat of navel jelly on there, just to clean all the rust up. I'll get all the rust removed, and I'll also paint the clamshell on the transformer. Here's the tuning cap, and it's not so bad. I do see a couple of the the piece is bent, which is fine, so we'll fix that. And we'll put this thing in the ultrasonic cleaner, and then we'll throw it in the Evaporust, because I do see a little bit of rust on here. It's not so bad. Actually, I don't see a lot of rust at all. Maybe that's not rust at all. So we may not need to put this in the Evaporust. We're going to throw it in the excuse me, in the ultrasonic cleaner first and see how that works. I do have a sorry, lost my battery. So I do have a replacement dial to put on here, and I noticed that this one is on with rivets, so I'll need to pop those rivets out and get that out of there. But let's see what happens when we put it in the ultrasonic cleaner. If we do end up having to put it in the Evaporust, we'll do that. So that'll be the next step. So let me go do that. By the way, before, one more thing. Here's the wires in the bottom that I mentioned that I snipped. And this is the piece of that Arcturus tube that was broken off. So I'll have to clean that out too and replace these wires. Alright, be back. Okay, we're filming on location. So I've removed the dial, and we're going to pop that in there. Let's see the right way to put it so I cover as much as I can. So we're going to do that. I can probably add just a little bit more water in there. Okay, that's good. We're going to pop that cover on, and we're going to set it for the maximum, which is 480 seconds. We're going to put on some heat, and we're going to hit start. Okay? And when this is done, I'll come back and show you how much that dirt is actually in there. So, be back. We're about halfway through, and we probably have about 60 years of cigarette tar in the water. It's nice and brown. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but the water's turned a nice shade of brown, and there's a lot of crap in there. So I think we got about 2 minutes or so. So a little bit more to go. I'll be back. Okay, so the timer's up. I flipped it around, and we're going to leave it now on this side. And we're going to do for another 480 seconds. See, that water's still nice and brown. And we'll see what happens. Be back. Okay, we've gone through the second pass, and we have a nice brown Coca-Cola-like liquid in here. And just taking a look at it, I still do see some rust here. So I am going to put this in the Evaporust. I'm going to run this through one more time with the legs open, and just make sure I clean all that out. Then we're going to throw it in the Evaporust, so let me do that. Okay, we're going to stop this right here. You can see there's still a fair amount of dirt on this thing. Right here. I may have to go after that with the acid brush and clean that up. But the first order of business is going to be getting this into the Evaporust, as I indicated, because there is some rust right there. I don't know if you could see it, a little bit of a glare, and there's some rust there. So we're going to throw that in. Take a look at that nice clean water. In the camera, to me, it doesn't look brown. Anyway, let's go throw this in the Evaporust. Okay, we have this big bucket of Evaporust that will last me a lifetime. And you'll see that there's a nice basket in there. We're just going to drop that right in there. I'm going to let that sit overnight, let it soak, and we'll take that out tomorrow. And what's going to happen is the metal's going to get really light and bright. I've done this before. Even the metal on the tuning capacitor itself is gonna brighten up. So it'll look really good when it's done. All right. So we'll put this in the next episode. What happens when we take this out? Be back. All right, here we are. We're gonna take the plunge, and we're gonna prime this thing after we get all this rust off, and then we're gonna paint it. So we're gonna dive in deep here. Remember, this is from 1931. So I don't want to take any chances with it. I want to make sure I do it right, and make sure it lasts another 80 years. So we're going to get all this rust off with some navel jelly. Then we're going to give it a coat of primer, and we're going to let that dry real good, and then we're going to give it a coat of metallic silver. I know some of you may be cringing, but this is the only way to save this chassis. This chassis is pretty rusty, so if I don't address it, it's gonna get worse. So I do need to put some Rust-Oleum on it. So it's my radio, right? That's how it works. I'll be back. Okay, here's an update on our tuning cap, and she's looking real sweet. Most of that rust is gone. That's great. A little bit more up here, so I'm just going to let this go back in the drink overnight, and then tomorrow we'll take it out and rinse it, and I think we'll be in good shape. Very cool. I'm going to end this video here. I did remove all the rust from the chassis, and I primed it, and I actually gave it an initial coat of the silver paint, and I'll show you that in the next video. But we're moving along really cool now. Plan for the next video is to print that plastic box for the capacitors, and we'll start to do the electronic restoration. Shouldn't be too hard. This radio is really simple. So that's where we are, folks. Hope everybody has a great night. We'll see you in the next episode.